I have the job now to introduce the next two speakers, and that is Patrice Bula, our Executive Vice President of the Strategic Business Units, or SBUs, Marketing, Sales, and Nespresso, to my right, and Stefan Palzer, who joined us beginning of 2018 in that role of Chief Technology Officer after a very promising and successful 20-year career in our research and technology area. And so these two will really take you through the nuts and bolts of this innovation engine and what has changed here and how it's showing tangible and already visible results that make a difference in the marketplace. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you again after the London meeting last time. A lot has changed, a lot has moved, and it's my pleasure today to do a joint presentation with Stefan Palzer. It's a joint presentation because this is the way we work. This is the way we work every day, and we work every day with one goal. And our goal in this matrix that Mark described is to provide winning gap, competitive gap to our people on the front line, to develop for our customers, the zone and the market, winning strategies for our brands, a rich pipeline that allow them to convince consumer to stay with our brand and buy our brand with behind it a very strong R&D program. Brands that are well managed, brands that we steer and protect, because sometimes we have to protect them to convince the consumer and to convince them at the heart and in the brain. This is what we do day in, day out. And what we have done over the last 18 months is not only to develop these capabilities and do that to help our markets win, but to bring acceleration in this, to bring acceleration culturally by working together and being closer and closer to the zone and market requirement, but also capabilities. And this is what Stefan will also show you, what we have done concretely to be able to offer to our market the way to come faster to market test with a new product. I come back to where we left you 18 months ago in London. These trends that we mentioned last time and how we were going after them are continuing to develop. They are no more trend, they are reality. They are a big segment of what today constitute the food industry. And we are addressing these trends with our brand across the world and at various levels of intensity. These trends, of course, are feeding the food industry. They are feeding the core and the old timeless consumer favorite. And these are big categories in which we are present. And we see an explosion of taste, an explosion of different texture, of people trying new things, and we want to be part of that because these categories, in some of these categories, our brands are leading and our brands are able to offer this to the consumer in a timely way. But to do this, brands have also to evolve. And we have worked a lot continuously to make sure our brand stay relevant to this new demand. It means first and foremost that our product have to be aligned to what they want. A lot of work has gone into making sure our labels are clean, that we remove what we used to have in some part of the world with some of our product, because a brand starts with its product, and no advertising can change a reality of a product that is not fulfilling the demand of our consumer. We have moved our communication brand from talking to consumer to embracing brand conversation with them and driving this together. We provide with our brand also experience that goes beyond, and I will show example of that are self-worthy, that achieve virality, because people today and this generation love to take pictures of their food or brand and share it with their friends. And finally, and very importantly, we believe, as Mark said, that every brand we have has to play a role on being authentic to itself, to this generation, and be a force for good and what it does, not only as a food product, but for the planet and for the community at large. It is our convictions that our brands can do that. It is our conviction that it's not because a brand is 100 years old that brand cannot continue to delight consumer yesterday, today, and tomorrow. But to do that, you have to constantly nourish this brand. And we nourish this brand with innovation, with new way of communicating, of being part of life of our consumer. And sometimes we have to push the envelope and even disrupt this brand. I wanted to show you 3 examples of Mike described of high-growth brand in non-growth, high-growth priority categories, just to show what we do. But before that, we activate this with 3 main pillars for us. Innovation, and we'll show the example of that, how we engage consumer with new brand experience, and I will show you example of that. And of course, this is backed up with a leading R&D in the industry with extraordinary capability to continue to build a pipeline of product. So 3 examples of such a brand. Sorry, I'll go. 3 examples of brands that have had an extraordinary run over the last few years, fed by innovation. And brands that are not new, brands that have been there for hundreds of years. Milo, a brand less known for some of you. A brand that is achieving close to 2 billion today. A brand that we, in its core, activate every 3 to 4 years with new active ingredient coming from R&D to reinforce the core of the proposition of that brand, which is energy, an energy drink. Variant with no added sugar to remove barrier for those who want less sugar. A new format, breakfast on the go, which is a complete meal for kids, for mothers who are worried because their kids are going to school without anything in the stomachs. And finally, more recently, a protein plus product addressed to the adolescent and in trend with this higher demand for protein. Another example, Coffee Mate. This is the brand that has been disrupted for the last 10 years to adjust it to the new reality of the consumer demand. This is the brand that is also a brand that's been there for a long time, a favorite, an iconic brand in the USA and several other markets. We have naturalized it. We have changed brand architecture to be part of this. We have developed plant-based variants that you could taste today. And we have pushed the envelope today to come with a premiumized product. And we have done that at speed over the last 18 months. Another example, which is more iconic and more known, is Kit Kat. How a simple 4-wafer product enrobed with chocolate can become an iconic brand that get a full page on the New York Times on the culture of Japan and the ability of this simple brand to premiumize, to bring completely new taste to the markets. And you see example here of the green tea that we have launched in Japan, but now today also in Europe, and successfully. And again, this is not done with long markets research. This is done on the spirit of trying and putting this in the market and surprising our consumers. We are also leveraging our technology and bringing this very fast to our newly acquired company. This is Sweet Earth, where we brought our pizza technology, Cold Brew, where we brought our technology to lengthen the shelf life of our chameleon product, and Starbucks will talk about it later on. The framework we use with R&D, our market, all of us, is based on 3 pillars of innovation. The search for authenticity in our product, the search for healthy lifestyle, and the search for inspirational experience. And this is also done in the context of developing socially responsible brand offer. So let me cover this rapidly. Seeking authenticity, this is about naturality, about origin, about craft, about clean label, about making our product relevant to consumer. You saw the Nesquik launch with all natural product, a breakthrough for the consumers, L'Atelier, and of course Origin Coffee, in Origin for the coffee. Seeking healthy lifestyle, we divide this into 2. This is where people search for great food, but which has an impact on their life and their health. We divide this into science-based product, and this is where we can tangibly express and talk to consumer about a benefit that we can deliver, and you have example here. This is a lot, of course, in the infant formula market, but also in Nestlé Health Science and in the pet care business. The other part has a lot to do with what I describe as new food ideology, is the choice of people to adopt some food because they feel better, because it fits a new diet, and that they want to believe that it is their pursuit into a healthier lifestyle. Of course, at the center of this, and we talk about it, is a plant-based, but also high-protein diet, also grain and nuts diet, and the gluten-free trend. Last pillar is inspirational experience, and this goes first into products, where we provide new texture, surprise the sense, with new taste, new texture. I think the iconic product here has been the Ruby Kit Kat, which we launched last year. We were the first to use this new cocoa variety to bring a completely different sensorial experience to a consumer. But you see a cold brew Nescafé, first to launch a cold brew into China. And finally, providing other dimension is into retailing, with, of course, the Nespresso boutique, where we have now close to 800 boutiques in the world, but also the Kit Kat chocolaterie, where consumer can come, experiment and taste and prepare, design for themselves a new Kit Kat. Also the Project Loop, we'll talk about that, and our 2 direct delivery system of tail.com with personalized nutrition of pet food and Freshly. As I said, all of this is done in the context of this brand delivering and being part of our creating shared value. And this is not new to us. We have been creating value and selling brand with purpose for more than 150 years. And without going into all this detail, this is about responsible marketing, recognized responsible marketing of infant formula. This is about addressing deficiencies in developing market with our product, offering 185 billions of serving of nutritional reinforcement in this country. Our commitment to packaging, and at Loen also our commitment upstream to farmers with the cocoa plan, with Nespresso on buying higher quality product, but also recycling system and Nescafé. This is rapidly to bring you to where Stefan will show you more concrete also capabilities that we have built to allow R&D to be closer to market and help market to launch product faster.
Thank you very much, Patrice. I would like now to take you through a number of measures we have taken during the last 12 to 18 months to accelerate innovation, to bring those innovations fueling our brands more rapidly to the marketplace. Foremost, it's about redesigning our ways of working. We started to enable a much earlier translation of science into innovation. We intensified rapid prototyping, and we increased frequency of test launches. We added and we funded additional fast-track projects, some of them even proposed by our employees. We revisit the effectiveness of our innovation partnerships. And finally, we are also piloting new approaches to lower capital investment required for market entrance. And all that was enabled by a much leaner and more agile R&D organization. And on top of that, we also simplified our project management process. Now I would like to take you through all of those 6 areas and explain a bit more in detail what we actually did. Let me start with the lean and agile R&D organization. As you know, our R&D organization is composed of fundamental research and product and technology development. Fundamental research, we consolidated into 3 major research institutes. Initially, we had 6 units, and now we have 3 major institutes. We added, like Mark already mentioned, a new institute for packaging science. This institute will pioneer new packaging materials, which allow us to address much more effectively the global plastic challenge. The institute will work closely together with suppliers and will assess all these new solutions which are popping up like mushrooms in the marketplace in terms of food safety, performance, but also sustainability. We also completed a major overhaul of our product and technology development. Actually, we moved from a technology-focused organization to a category-focused organization. And finally, we strengthened our regional innovation centers, which are placed here really in high-growth regions. Now let me talk about our improvements in terms of ways of working. As mentioned before, we accelerated the translation of fundamental science into innovation. So we shortened the timeline from project start until we see a first launch by 20 to 30%. And this was achieved by an earlier conceptualization of the findings of fundamental research, but it was also achieved by implementing generations of claims. So you could imagine in the middle of a project, you have already a claim, sometimes a bit softer, and at the end of the project, you move then eventually to a much harder claim. On the current slide, you see already some examples, many of them obviously in our nutrition business. We stepped up our efforts in terms of rapid prototyping and testing. Prototyping allows us to move comparably fast from an idea to a prototype, which we can then validate in the frame of a test launch. We equipped now half of our centers with prototyping kitchens and prototyping specialists. And until mid of next year, we will have completed this transformation and all our centers will have prototyping capabilities. This enabled us already during the last 12 months to deliver hundreds of prototypes, some of them leading already to launches, others are still in evaluation. An exciting area are our additional fast-track projects. So we started 40 new projects, and these are really here enabled by a very pragmatic funding process. This works a bit like Shark Tank. So you have employees, you have your own workforce coming with ideas, they pitch those ideas, and we release here the required funding in the frame of 1 or 2 hours. So we're not talking about days, we're not talking about months, we're talking about hours. The project team executes then those ideas, those projects in 12 months, and then hopefully we have launches. And you see here on the bottom of the slide already some success stories also here. Amongst those success stories, the Garden Gourmet incredible burger, which we will discuss a bit later. A great tool to encourage here entrepreneurship amongst our workforce. So really an exciting initiative. Let me briefly talk about the effectiveness of our innovation partnerships. Effective innovation partnerships are absolutely crucial to accelerate innovation. We started to perform now ideation exercises, trend-focused ideations with students and universities. We intensified our collaboration with startups. We were always a part of programs like Mass Challenge, but now much more important, while we are talking, we are installing an accelerator in our major research center in Switzerland. So here we will be able to host up to 20 startups. Those startups will collaborate with the 600 scientists we have in place there. They will have access to all the labs and the pilot plants. In this respect, this is a unique accelerator. Every company has today an accelerator, but I think we have the only one, we are the only one which has an accelerator which is really embedded in a fundamental research center. What's also unique, the teams working in this accelerator will be composed of startups, entrepreneurs, students, suppliers, and our own experts. So we will see how this is working, but we are quite excited about that. And eventually we will roll out this concept amongst all our major centers. We started cooperation with bloggers and influencers to identify trends like insect-based food, for instance, much earlier, and to understand those trends much better. And finally, a focused co-development with suppliers provides various opportunities to accelerate key projects. Last but not least, we are also piloting new approaches to lower capital investment required for market entrance. So we started to manufacture first batches in existing pilot plants. So we are avoiding here CapEx. And then we are designing and also installing now flexible and modular lines. Collaborative robots play here a very important role. Artificial intelligence is instrumental here to provide a flexibility in our manufacturing base we haven't seen before. So we'll be ideally set up to manufacture different products on those lines without having major capital investment. Now I would like to show you 3 examples of accelerated projects. some of them already mentioned by Mark and Patrice. Starbucks at home. In only 24 months, in only 6 months, we developed 24 new products by leveraging our proprietary Nestlé technologies. You will be able to test those products in the product exhibition. So we are leveraging here our capsule and systems expertise. We are using here also our booster technology to provide a creamy and outstanding cappuccino foam. And last but not least, also our roasting capabilities were instrumental in delivering here outstanding products. This project and this rapid timeline was also enabled by intensive prototyping. You see here the power of prototyping. 6 months is really an aggressive timeline, and we provided here ample prototypes which were validated together with the Starbucks team and which we brought then to the market. Another very good example are infant formulas with so-called human milk oligosaccharides, HMOs. These are complex sugars which are only found in human milk. They are not found in bovine milk. Administering those human milk oligosaccharides to babies is associated with a much more healthy composition of the microbiome of the baby. And this provides a number of health benefits to the baby. We observe fewer respiratory tract infections. The risk of bronchitis is massively reduced. And finally, we see also reduced usage of antibiotics in those babies. We rolled out this technology under different brands, and Thierry Filado will go a bit more in detail what we did in this respect in 44 markets in only 12 months. It's a very good example of a very early transformation of fundamental science into product innovation and an accelerated rollout of this new technology. Last example, our Garden Gourmet Incredible Burger. Developed in 1 year and launched in 10 markets by end of 2019. I have the product here in front of me, and you will be able to test it also in the exhibition. So this is a burger patty which has a meat-like texture and color. The red color is achieved here by a special extract of red beet, so it's a natural color. Sizzling sound and color change during preparation, so if you put it in a pan, it behaves like meat, and then you have also a superior nutritional profile compared to many products in the market. This is enabled by our proprietary extrusion technology, and I'm pleased to mention here already that since end of last month, this burger is now available in 1,400 McDonald's outlets across Germany. So a big success for us. Now I would like to hand over to Patrice Bula, who will explain to you how we deliver engaging brand experiences.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This was the end of the first pillar of how we build brand and make our brand relevant at the heart and in the brain of our consumer. Second pillar, how we continue to nourish our brands with engaging brand experience. So what I would like to do is to show you 3 examples of how we do this, and not in traditional media. This is all activation outside traditional media. The first one is a Kit Kat. It's self-explanatory. I will not talk about it. The second one is about Felix. Felix is a brand that is less well known, but it's an extraordinary brand, and it's become a billionaire brand this year for us. Felix as an icon, as a cartoon cat, that is a witty street cat, and you will see how we have activated this in the streets of Europe. The third one is a Milo partnership with Barcelona. This is interesting. When a big club contacts you, usually is to ask you millions to sponsor them. This time the Barcelona asked us how they could be part of what Milo does in the world, and what Milo does as a grassroots movement. And we have found a way, and of course there was no way we would finance it the way they wanted it, so in a very, very cost-efficient way for us to partner, brings value to what Milo is all about, which is grassroots movement and teaching life value to children. The third one is a bit long, I'm sorry, but the total is 4 minutes, so if we could have this video, please. Three examples, and in this case, of course, the value in the virality of what we show. It's not just only what you do in the street of Paris and so, but of course how it is shared and travels the world on the digital world. We do this. These are three maybe anecdotes, but we do this at scale, and we do this by monitoring also our performance. And again, in the FE Award in 19, we come, unfortunately this time, second. And I have to say humbly, we have to accept that one great quick serve restaurants was ahead of us. But you can see also that we created further gap versus other packaged food company. And we'll have to learn and regain this number one spot that we hold for the last 3 years. You see on the right how we measure the effectiveness of our copy advertising and make sure we get in this first quartile of persuasions of our brand. In parallel to this, we pursue personalization at scale. And we pursue this on already a very large base of more than 100 million first-party data that we own. And you see the numbers of which this is an acceleration of acquiring this data, but also qualitative data that are attributes that we capture that allows us to do more and more targeted marketing and personal messaging that you see in the second pillar here. 10% of our contact today are personalized. We put also all our assets into what we call content studio, and we have 20 of them in the world, from which the market can draw, personalize, tailor-made their advertising and what they think is important in their culture to achieve the right way to touch the heart of people, but also in an efficient way. Last but not least, with programmatic coming in, we are now working more and more with this way of buying media, and you see here the effectiveness of it. All this leads us to believe that we will be able to continue to gain efficiencies in the way we work and reinvest this efficiency behind our brand. We'll do this in media, where we have worked from doing media review at market level to continental level, and we believe that we can leverage our scale and the scale of our brand to get lower and lower buying rate. We consolidated activation agency. We do not accept any more creative fees that are done on a market basis, but we want our supplier to find the way to provide us at the lowest possible cost and the best quality possible. We develop asset more centrally to be redistributed to market and tailor-made. And last but not least, for what is a simple advertising, Twitter-like type of promotional and response and witty brand contact with consumer, we have brought this in-home into a content studio. So this will bring us to the third pillar, which is this, the strengths of Nestlé in this fundamental R&D that is able to deliver a pipeline of new product today and of course tomorrow, and I'll leave Stefan to give you a glimpse of this for the future.
Thank you very much, Patrice. Well, let's have a look at our 9 most important science and technology platforms. It starts with coffee roasting and extraction. Then we have a platform comprising of material science to reduce salt, sugar, and fat in our products. Alternative proteins, a very important platform, comprising of technologies to deliver dairy, but also meat analogs. Microbiome, a science-driven platform, which provides innovation opportunities for many of our categories. Cellular nutrition is instrumental to effectively address healthy aging. Infant and maternal nutrition. Multi-omics profiling, a very important platform for authenticity control and food safety. Digital nutrition, and finally, our beverage systems. These platforms we are leveraging across our brands. Good examples here, our roasting technology, which we use to innovate for Nescafé, Nespresso, Blue Bottle Chameleon, and now newly also for Starbucks. We leverage them also across categories. I took here the example of dairy alternatives. Dairy alternatives, typically you start with different plant materials, oat, rice, legumes, almonds, nuts, quinoa, millet, and so on. Then we transform those using our proprietary fermentation, separation technologies, micromilling, homogenization, and also protein aggregation, where we have various patterns into plant milks and dairy alternatives. And this allows us to innovate in different categories. You see here the economies of scale at work in the R&D area. So we can innovate for our beverage business, Nescafé Dolce Gusto, plant-based, you see here. Then for our dairy business, ready-to-drink products, creamer, and also plant-based ice cream. But it's not also only about trend-focused innovation. We also deepen our understanding of the link between health and nutrition for all stages of life. It starts already with metabolic programming, starting actually with conception, so during a pregnancy, continues with breastfeeding, so we investigate how maternal nutrition is impacting here metabolic programming of the child and also the health of the child. Epigenetics seem to play an important role here. Then we investigate how nutrition is here impacting the development of the child, cognitive development, but also physical development. Myelination of the infant brain is impacted here quite significantly by the absence or presence of certain fatty acids. And finally, it turns out that many of our health-related conditions are linked to malfunction of mitochondria. Mitochondria are the power stations of the cells. If they are not working, we have a serious problem. And now we can address this mitochondria malfunction via natural bioactives. Now these fundamental scientific understandings we are leveraging also not only for different categories, but we are leveraging also for different species. I took here the example of a ketogenic diet and medium-chain triglycerides, which are effective for treatment of epilepsy in humans, but also in dogs. Dogs, certain breeds, have up to 10% prevalence of epilepsy. Probably you don't know that. These MCTs can be also very effective for improving cognition in elderly. Now this we can now use to innovate, on one hand for our Purina business, but to innovate as well for our dairy business and our Nestlé Health Science business. Similar example, probiotics and microbiome. The microbiome has a huge impact on our immune defense and also gut and mental health. So the findings we have here, we can deploy for our Purina business again, and we can leverage them for Nestlé Health Science and our infant nutrition business. Here, for instance, the recent launch by Purina is a probiotic. This probiotic has been proven to be effective equally for humans, but also for pets. So that brings me to the end. I hope that I could have shown you that we have an R&D powerhouse in place and that we are leveraging those capabilities to fuel our brands. Now Patrice will show finally some billionaire brands and show how we drive those brands through innovation.
So ladies and gentlemen, all of this, our ability to innovate and to innovate faster, to read trends and read the trends, but also bring the products to these trends faster than before. Our ability to keep our brand in conversation with consumer, and you just saw the backbone, strong, deep R&D capabilities we have, allow our brands to continue to grow. And if you look at last year, 29 out of 34 billionaire brands grew and grew some significantly in the world. We added 2 new brands. I talked about Felix. We are very proud of a brand that was built in the heart of Europe, a tough market, a difficult market, where we have built with, again, technology, an iconic product, iconic communication, backed up by real science, a new businesses that is winning for us in Europe. Another winning business that Chris will talk more about is Illuma, who became a billionaire brand in ultra-premium affinity milk position in China, and you will hear more about it this afternoon. This we hope, we try to share our conviction, Stefan and I, that our brands are extremely well positioned to continue to delight consumers today, tomorrow, and in the future. And that it is far less about this so-called big food against small brand than it is about great brands continuing to do their job, continuing to be invested in, continuing to be delighting consumer, and having the R&D capabilities that really make a difference in the life of consumers. Thank you very much for your attention. Saved a minute 20.
Okay, so we can open it up now for the Q&A. I think we are perfectly on time. We have around 25-30 minutes for Q&As. So if you want to ask a question, please press on the voice button of your microphone. Please identify yourself by speaking your name and the name of your organization. Limit yourself to 2 questions every time. Anyone who wants to? James?
Yeah, it's James Edwards Jones from RBC. Stefan, you mentioned that R&D has moved from to a category basis from a technology basis, and then at the end there you gave us examples of a technology that's relevant both in pet care and nutrition. How does this process work? If it's one category has responsibility for that technology, how do you then work out how it can be transferred across the categories, and what's the process by which it actually happens?
Yes, very good question. Our R&D structure is, we can describe as follows. We have a fundamental research backbone, which is going across categories. And those examples, those technologies, these fundamental science results, they are all elaborated in this fundamental research organization, which is highly concentrated. And then we use that to innovate in different categories. So product and technology development is category focused, but fundamental research is going across categories. So that's why we are guarding a strong fundamental research organization in order to fuel now all those categories with the same fundamental science.
We go for a second question, maybe at the bottom of the...
Hi, you've got John Ennis from Goldman. You showed a slide talking about how 60% of revenues fall within high growth categories. I just wondered what proportion of your innovation efforts fall within those high growth categories. Is it more than the 60% of sales that it represents? And then to what degree is the growth acceleration for the group getting back to mid-single digit reliant on those high growth businesses accelerating from the 4% they're delivering today? Or is it more a function of improving the low growth businesses that are kind of lagging behind the group? Thanks.
If I understand well, you are asking how much. Can I ask you to repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah, sure. So the question was, you showed that 60% of revenues fall within high growth categories, and I wondered what the proportion was for your innovation efforts, i.e. do your innovations, are they 80% focused behind the high growth components of the business? And then I wondered if you could link that back to what is going to drive the overall group acceleration.
Okay, sorry, I should have understood that question. No, we of course, you can imagine we have high growth categories, but for whom we have specific effort to continuously come with a pipeline of new products. We do not measure in percentage of our innovation. We know that we renovate a product between 1,000 and 5,000 products a year because a big effort is renovation. When we do a Milo high protein, is it an innovation renovation for us? This is not so important as how much does it have an impact on the consumer we want to reach and transform this into growth. So what we also wanted to show you is while we have, of course, effort on this high growth category, the one we have identified, we also continue to do a lot of work on all other brands. Why? Because these brands are absolutely critical for some part of the world, are equally important, and I think we try to show you here 3 brands that are not in the identified high growth categories, but are providing us very, very nice growth. And to do that, of course, we have to constantly also stimulate this with what you saw in Coffee Mate, a very important brand in the USA. And you saw what result we can have at the heart of the US food and beverage segment. So I think I'm not answering this very well, but our effort is continuously broad-based. Broad-based because we have this extraordinary portfolio of, and you saw our billionaire brand, but we have also more than 2,000 local brands. And these local brands benefit from some cross-fertilization of having technology platform that we deploy, maybe was developed for one product, but we developed on others. And these brands are very important locally for our organizations.
Yeah, by the way, John, in Francois' presentation this afternoon, we have a chart that shows that 63% of our CapEx goes into high growth categories. Maybe next questions.
CapEx.
Yeah, CapEx, correct, yes. Elena?
Hello, I'm Eileen Kuhn, Morgan Stanley. I've got two questions. The first one is how much of a competitive advantage are these innovations that you talk about? So for example, patent protections, things like that, or is it easily replicable by your competitors? That's the first question. And then secondly, on the subject of patents, I guess you talked about the sugar breakthrough innovation a couple of years ago. I wondered where you are on that. Is there any more opportunities to roll out that technology? Thanks.
Sure. So if you look at IP protection and the barriers you can build via technology and via science, depends always a bit on the category. If you go in a category like infant nutrition or beverage systems, yes, there we try to protect as much. In other categories, it's also much more about speed. If you take confectionery, we go very quickly and we try to accelerate the innovation machine and to outpace the competitors via speed and global rollout. You saw, I showed you a number of examples where in a remarkable short time, we covered a large number of markets. And here, the competitive advantage was coming from speed. So it depends always a bit on the category. And you will see us still heavily patenting in certain areas. You can track that. Certain areas, we want really to protect ourselves via technology. Specifically, like I said, infant nutrition, speed is a bit difficult because you have regulatory constraints, you have safety constraints. So here, you need to protect a bit more via technology. Then what was the second part of your question? Sugar, yes. Yeah, the sugar technology, this hollow sugar. Now we launched that in the UK, like you rightly know, under one brand. Now we start to combine that with other technology building blocks. It has proven to be very effectively, if you have this one technology and you combine it with others, you can bring the product even to a much higher sensorial experience. So we will roll that out, but in combination with other technology building blocks.
I think to complement what Stefan just said, I think you will see us very often now do things faster and come up with a product that is maybe a 1.0 and then continue to work at it to improve on it and improve on it. So we wanted to bring this sugar because it was a breakthrough. We did it. It's doing well. In the meantime, we have continued to work to enhance the organoleptic delivery and the way we can combine it further, and you will see us continue to dig in and bring 2.0, 3.0 and the product. So this is a price to pay to be fast. You don't wait this to be perfect, but you do, you learn and you move on and hopefully improve the product continuously.
Okay, we move to the next questions. Alain?
Thank you very much. Alain Oberhuber, Mainfirst. I have a question regarding the Billionaire Brains. You said 5 brands didn't grow last year. Was it because you didn't do any product innovation? And if so, if you did some product innovation, why did that fail?
No, I mean, yes, you have, when you have all the children of the family, you hope that all of them will do well. And sometimes you are slower, sometimes you have not caught one trend, sometimes you have decided that you want to fix other part of the business, that you want to fix margins, and are doing other work than just grow. And this sometimes we make that choice, that it is more important for us to get back substance in the P&L than innovating. But yes, it's a combination of this. In this brand, you have seen some issue that we want to address, where we have been challenged, and we will be there. But these brands, of course, benefit from innovation and R&D, but you don't win every time, but we win a lot of time. If you look at our portfolio, we win a lot of times. And we cannot, unfortunately, expect all of them to do always well in such a broad portfolio on a broad geography like what we do. Yeah.
Okay, we move to the next question.
Thanks, Luca. John Feeney at Consumer Edge. How do you measure the returns from your R&D organization, particularly when you think about the research backbone and specifically within that, what metrics do you use? There's lots of people who contribute to the success of great innovation across the zones and products. What metrics do you use to manage and pay the people in that R&D organization? Thanks.
Interestingly, I get this question quite frequently, so it's a question I'm used to. Now, what we measure is, on one hand, the spend in R&D and also marketing, and what we measure against that is the growth which we achieve. And there, if you compare that, I think we are doing well. So that's one of the measures. Then we compare ourselves also in terms of R&D intensity with major competitors. So how much of our turnover we spend for R&D. If you consider the mix, I think it's very comparable. So that's the metrics which we measure. And then what I want to see is also how many launches we finally have. Let's talk about launches. And in this world, you know, in the new environment, it's very clear that not every launch will succeed. So you have to try a bit more frequently than in the past. So we have to get a certain number of launches, and then we're tracking how those launches are doing. Yeah.
Okay, maybe we move to Selina.
Céline Pannuti, JP Morgan. My question is about boundaries in your categories, because it seems that there is much less boundaries that we are used to. Before you could say coffee, confectionery, and so on and so forth. Now I see that you go into QSR and launch vegetable burgers. You also have this snack bar with almonds. You know, so my question is, how do you decide whether this is a category or subcategory worth going to, and how you balance the top line opportunity versus the cost and overall the margin that you can do there? Thank you.
Thank you. It's a very good question. One of the key roles of the SBU is to design the strategy of categories, and this is what you refer to, which have been quite defined in a framework, and we do this, is a very dynamic process which involves the market. So when we do this, we look at, are we able to win? Is this category continuing to be relevant to consumer and can grow at the level we want? And are we well positioned? Do we have the innovation? And it happens a lot when we do this. We also look at adjacency. Adjacency, what is around our category? In today's world, a lot of the disruption of our categories has not come from inside, come from the outskirt of our categories. And then you have to decide, do we do this? And the extraordinary thing at Nestlé is usually we have the capabilities, the technology to do it. And then you have to decide that if part of what is the impulse chocolate categories is not growing as fast as before, is because people want alternative grain-based, and we can do it under the Yes brand and do it, we do it. We do it, and we do it fast, and we try in some market to really lead these categories. So this is a concerted, of course, effort. What I describe as the role of the SBU is a very dynamic process of working with the market and the zone and saying, well, if we do, are the zone committed? In our matrix, of course, we are here, we are the competence builder. We are trying to bring to the zone what they can do, but the zone at the end have to say, this is my priority and I will do it. And this is why I think our matrix works very well. So yes, we will continue to expand the boundaries there where we feel we have the brand, the competencies, and there is a segment to be taken and Nestlé can take it. And so that you will see. I think on QSR we have had contact and we have businesses with some major QSR company. We have always had with them. And I think when these customers see very interesting breakthrough product and that we can work together, of course, we will work together and try to develop this business.
Okay, next question comes from James Target.
Hi there. Yes, James Target from Berenberg. You mentioned the 6 to 12 months sort of, maybe best in class launch time. Could you give us some color on, where you struggle the most to reduce the launch time across your categories? I think you mentioned infant formula because of maybe regulation, but generally where it's hardest to be so agile and so quick to respond to new trends. Thank you.
Yes, very, very good question. I think we have, and we did not want to go in detail, but part of our end-to-end process review, one of this process was called Idea to Launch, which was a process with a lot of barriers of each person having to sign on a lot of things before we were able to launch. This was a perfect process. We have decided, and this is very important culturally also, to say we will give far more freedom to the people on the front line in the market to do it or not, but we will not check it anymore. So it's up to them to take the responsibility to cut some barrier and make sure the organization there has gone through regulatory QA process and that it is not always done with a back and forth with Vevey and so. It's of course when you look at some categories, if you look at where we need clinical trials, where we need a product for infant or for senior people, or when Greg will talk about health science, this is where we need far more time to make sure that the product we bring to market can deliver on the benefit we propose. This is different from doing 24 new products for Starbucks. Of course, because there you have less constraint to the clinical trial or the benefit. You want to complement?
Yeah, and in areas where you have safety considerations.
Yeah.
So you go in certain sensitive product categories, you have to do much more studies to ensure that the product is safe. So it's categories where we have regulatory and safety constraints. There, it's a bit tough to compress timelines, and we shouldn't do because it will put a lot at risk.
Okay, next question, Alan Erskine.
Yes, Alan Erskine from Credit Suisse. Two questions. One, I just want to understand if you could elaborate for us the movement of the greater responsibility into the categories, because as I understood it, you always had that backbone in Lausanne, and you always had these product technology centers which were confectionery or cereal based, so were very specific to the category. So firstly, if you could just elaborate a bit more about what's different to the way you were organized, say, 3 years ago. And secondly, when you were asked about the metrics, you didn't mention the 60-40 test. Is that something that you still apply, and how are you performing on that? Thank you.
Yes, so let's first talk about the organization. Yes, it's true, we always had a fundamental research organization. But initially, this was comprising of 6, you can even say 7 subunits. So we consolidated those into 3 major institutes. So there was a consolidation which took place. And then, like I said, I explained that we added the packaging institute because this was a major gap. And by the way, it's the only packaging institute you find in the entire industry. There's no others. Now, when it comes to product and technology development, this product and technology development was pretty much centered around technologies. So I had a center which was a team which was working on spray drying, for instance. Now we are focusing those centers much more around a certain category and certain brands. And the collaboration with the SBU is now very, very close. So we have joint meetings nearly every week. We agree on innovation pipelines. So the focus of those centers is now around categories and brands. Before, it was pretty much focused on technology, which is suboptimal for the innovation process. So that's the changes which we did there. Second part of your question was on, help me? on 60/40. 60/40, yes, exactly. Now, 60/40 will still continue, specifically if we renovate major brands. We don't want to lose here product preference. Then if we do fast-track innovation, sometimes we go also on more pragmatic tools, like preference mapping tools, for instance. But 60/40 is still there. We want to guard sensorial preference, specifically for our major SKUs in the marketplace.
Well, I think we still have time for 2 more questions. Jean-Philippe.
Jean-Philippe Berchier, Fontobel. To come back to the returns of your new innovation, are you not afraid to increase dramatically the complexity and the SKUs as well? And I think François has been doing a great job with working capital, so how is it disruptive to this target? And the second one would be on pricing. How are you trying to price up those innovations?
So I take the first part of the question, and the second part I leave to Patrice. Now, the first part, very clear. I explained to you that we have tried to build now and design much more flexible manufacturing lines. So complexity is an issue if you have a very rigid manufacturing base. But if you have the right IT tools, flexible manufacturing setups, cobots I talked about, then complexity is not such a big issue. So we adapt our manufacturing base to allow also for more different products. Otherwise, it's very difficult to test these different innovations in the marketplace. You see in the marketplace a proliferation of offerings. The time where we had only a few offerings in the shelves, they are over. So we have to accommodate for that. And that we do while having a bit more flexibility in manufacturing.
Okay.
I think also, I will answer the second question, but also what you don't see in the talk is that every year, every market review the tail end of the SKUs and cull them. We of course, you have to, you always move, but you always see at the end of the year what was your 20, 30, hundreds SKU did not perform, and you take them out. So this is a dynamic process of adding on one hand, but also taking out on the other hand. On pricing, what I did not do well is to give credit to what has been done with the 3 examples I showed. On the pricing we are getting in this journey into having new products and do this. The single finger volcano cocoa bean paste that we are launching in Japan is the 3 times the price of the 4th finger that you see on the left side of the product. And it's the same with Coffee Mate. So as we do it, we price it accordingly to what we think we can get, to the benefit we give to the consumers. And of course, this is a very, very important part of making our brand relevant and delivering this at the right price and the right value for money for consumer.
Okay, we have time for 1 question, Jonathan, and then we have the final remarks by Mark.
Thanks. It's Jonathan Cook from State Street. Could I ask, I guess, as a percentage of sales, is the combined sum spent on innovation, brand experiences, and R&D capabilities going up year on year? And if so, what's coming down? Or another way of asking it is, how is the marketing mix changing if you're prioritizing these 3 areas?
I can just talk about the R&D spend. Let me first cover that. Our R&D budgets are stable, but we are using those budgets differently. So you saw a number of initiatives where we are funding fast-track innovation. In the past, we wouldn't have done that. In the past, we would have a very rigid portfolio of projects which we execute. So how we spend this budget is changing. But the budget per se is stable.
I think it's the same on brand building. I think last year we had a slightly positive in real term, what we call PFME spend. But I think very, very importantly is we're living in a time of incredible disruptions and opportunities in the way new media, digital and beyond, allowed us to get greater and greater efficiency. And the whole drive of the marketing of the future toward personalization, when done at scale and done very, very well, allow you through hyper-targeting and so incredible efficiency for your dollar. And we are on a journey to that. We are accelerating because we can see that how much benefit it brings. So I believe in the future the number per se in real value of what is PFME will be a bit or far less relevant to are you really getting growth with the money you spend, and can I see it in your results, because we intend to gain a lot and work a lot on that dimensions.